I put some questions to Dr. Dennis Hauck, North American director of the International UFO Registry. Some of these mysteries, like the Nazca Plains, how would you explain them?
I think the Nazca Plains have been mistreated in the literature. There's much more information there than is generally available. The Nazca Plains have been presented as so much graffiti which the extraterrestrials put on the plains for our enjoyment or their enjoyment. And actually, there's a great many more mysteries involved there. The Nazca Plains have only been known to mankind for 30 years. They were discovered by a commercial airline pilot. And if you're down on the ground in the plains, you see no marks. You see nothing. It's just a grassy area. In fact, the Pan American Highway was built right across the plains. No one noticed anything. But from a commercial airliner or from an airplane, you can see bits of the Nazca Plain. The Nazca Plain is 300 square miles around, and you really can't see the entire plain unless you're in space. The entire plain is very much covered with hematite, which is iron oxide. And as far as being a spaceship going to a planet, and if you were to do a magnetospheric survey of the planet, which we might assume would be done, the Nazca Plains would stand out like a red light. They would be a distortion of the field because of the rich iron deposits there. It's by far the biggest area on the planet Earth of this type of iron oxide deposits. The plain itself, when we look at the iron deposits, we find that there are actually rails running slightly below the ground. They're rusted now, but they're probably about 1,500 years old, perhaps 1,000 years old. We have
about the same age as the
plane itself and the markings.
The markings
right
on the plane. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The railings are about 22 feet apart, and when we think now, what could they be used for? We have a number of connections. One thing, the average size, average diameter of UFOs that we see today happens to be 21.5 feet. A very close coincidence there.
Do you think that they visited ancient man by example and perhaps with actual help, implanted ideas that became the inspiration for many of the mysteries that we now think of as the mysteries of the gods?
This is the key, I think, to an intelligent understanding of the ancient astronauts' effect on our lives in the past and present. The people, I don't think, these artifacts that we find that are so hard to explain do not fit in the culture. They do not fit the religious customs of the culture. It seems like there was a tremendous inspiration to make these artifacts on the part of the people. And I think that this inspiration finds its source with extraterrestrial intervention.
Or optical illusions. I spoke again with Dr. Dennis Hauck. As a mathematician, you're eminently qualified because of your training to observe and analyze UFOs. What got you interested?
I became interested while I was in graduate school in Vienna, Austria. We were on a skiing holiday to Innsbruck, Austria, and myself and two companions had come upon a UFO as we went over a ridge on the Nordketten range. We saw the object, what we thought was an object, hovering in front of a boulder, about 250 feet in front of us, across a small ravine. And it was grayish shaped, looked like it was spinning, at least it had that shimmering effect. And we were very excited. We threw up our skis and started running towards it. And as we approached the object, it actually disappeared in front of our eyes. And as I look back on the sighting, I think perhaps it was an optical illusion, but in any case, it got me very interested in the problem of UFOs.
You saw what you thought was a UFO then, a flying saucer. Looking back now with more information at your fingertips, you consider it now an aberration of nature, something that was naturally there that you took to be a UFO.
Correct. Yeah.
So we seem to have a problem in discriminating between what are unidentified flying objects and what aren't.
It's a major problem in ufology, I think.
Well, you have some pictures here that illustrate that pretty well. I think that, for example, here, number of photographs of things that, if you weren't knowledgeable, you could take to be unidentified flying objects, flying saucers, in fact.
Right. These show up in the field quite a bit and create what we call noise, bad reports. For instance, this one from the Gemini 7 shot, you see these pentagon-shaped objects that really are lens flares.
Right. And this one here, an obvious fake, huh?
It's a noctilucent cloud. It's a cloud that glows of its own
I
accord
see.
from the static, which here are lenticular clouds, which are saucer-shaped clouds
Right.
appearing over.
And then, something more mysterious, the real thing.
The real thing, at least what we believe to be the real thing.
Here, the saucer-shaped vehicle with the dome on the top.
A unique shape which is coming up in recent years, more and more reported. We're getting away from that pie-shaped, pan-shaped objects and into this.
Then you believe that there is such a thing as a UFO with an intelligence inside it that is not ours, not human.
I think that is one of the characteristics which we can assume UFOs behave in most cases in a linear fashion, a purposeful fashion. They do not, they seem to have a motive behind it. This is true in all categories: nocturnal lights, daylight disk, close encounters. We have this linearity of purpose and in many cases linearity of behavior. That is, they don't show up in one part of the sky and then just disappear and show up in another part. You can usually trace their motions and movements. They interact. They have this interactability with our environment and with our physical world. In other words, they leave traces in the ground. They leave UFO rings.
There is some evidence of that too.
There are some good examples here of rings.
Right here of the burnt out areas. Where was this? In Australia?
That's Melbourne, Australia, and there are over 300 such rings seen in conjunction with UFO sightings. These aren't just patches in the ground because there is a fungus which will cause these patches, but these are seen in conjunction with UFO sightings in numerous cases.
Can you deduce something of their characteristics, their intelligence, their motivation, by their actions?
Mathematically or logically, there's not much to deduce there. We haven't had any contact, and that in itself is a hint, I think, to the motivation behind the UFO occupants, if there is such a thing, or the UFO intelligences. They don't care about interacting with us, at least on our conscious level. They're not. They don't really care about meeting human beings at the present time. There's something about the way they act I don't like personally. There's a belief in the field that UFOs are benign, that they're here to save us. Sometimes I have to wonder about that belief because simply the way they behave.
Well, what could you speculate would be their motivation? I mean, if it wasn't benign, would it be harmful?
Of course, there's a possibility, but I think they really don't care one way or the other. I think they're here perhaps for their own motives, which maybe we can't understand their motives, but whatever it is, I think it's wrong to think they're here to save the world, and I think it's wrong to think that they're here to destroy it.
I wonder if it's not an attempt by so many people to explain the inexplicable.
It's used that way. The very idea of UFOs is used that way. It's misused.
As you know, it's been said that our brain is one of the biggest mysteries in itself. Are we not looking at something that is deep in our ancient history?
Indeed, we have a racial memory, perhaps, of visitations, or at least contact, when we were more primitive, perhaps, in a more primitive state. This entire thing about the quantum leap that the human race took towards intelligence and self-conscious behavior is very mysterious. There is a missing link, that there must have been intelligent interference at some time in evolutionary history. We know that apes and the humanoid types that we evolved from had 48 Y chromosomes, whereas today a human being has 46 X chromosomes, which is quite a change genetically, and there's a possibility, I think, that it was induced.